What exactly does retinol do? It is one of the most Googled questions, and I think it's a really important one to answer, particularly for those of you who might be new to my channel. Hello and welcome. Retinol is probably the ingredient that gets the most attention and interest in skincare, and with good reason. There is a lot of fear about it because of potential worry and anxiety around starting it, but then there is all this promise. It's the golden ingredient, the ingredient that's going to deliver everything from solving acne to improving the appearance of aging skin. So today's video is really about what it does to the skin, why we see benefits, and why it's worth it. So let's get into it. So retinol is perhaps the most frequently formulated retinoid. Now, retinoid is the family name and retinol is part of the family. We also have other retinoids like retinaldehyde or granactive retinoid, but we're going to talk about retinol today. And it's an ingredient derived from vitamin A, and it's basically a hormone, which means that when we apply it to our skin, it gets absorbed and it interacts with receptors called retinoid receptors. Now, to interact with those receptors, that retinol molecule has to be altered. So the key does not yet fit the lock. Retinol goes through something called oxidation twice. So one oxidation step gets it to retinaldehyde, and another oxidation step gets it to something called all-trans retinoic acid or tretinoin. Now, that is the gold standard retinoid, so a member of the family. And the reason it's a gold standard is because that is the key that unlocks the retinoid receptor. So we need to get the retinol into the active form for it to have its effect on our skin. What happens when that occurs? Well, retinoid receptors combine with areas of our genes. They're called retinoid receptor responsive genes. And they switch them on or change their function in some way. Now, the fascinating thing about our skin is that within skin cells, there are up to 3,000, possibly more, genes that are influenced by the impact of that retinoid interacting with the retinoid receptor. And there's different types of receptors as well. So let's look at the different genes that the retinoid receptor interacts with and what impact that has on the cell and ultimately the skin. So the first area where retinoids have a really positive impact is on cell turnover, so improving the rate of cell turnover. And this is in reference to the epidermis, the outermost layer of our skin. I have a Hector on my knee today. So what that means is by speeding up cell turnover, we improve the way the stratum corneum, which is the outermost part of our epidermis, looks and functions. So it becomes more compact and it becomes thinner and more flexible. But equally, the epidermis itself gets thicker and differentiation occurs more effectively. So the upshot of all of that means that we get a smoother, brighter looking, more even textured surface of our skin. Then the next major win is that retinoids binding to these responsive genes affect our fibroblast function. Now, the fibroblast is that hardworking cell down in the dermis, which is the source of our collagen. It's where elastin is manufactured, it's where hyaluronic acid is created, and is really the building blocks of the skin's deeper structure. And it's obviously loss of collagen and damage to elastin and lower production of hyaluronic acid that has an impact that leads to the appearance of wrinkles, skin looking sagging, and generally losing that kind of juicy plumpness that we associate with youth. And really driving thickness of our dermis. That's really the role of the fibroblast. There's other things as well, but those are really key in terms of the signs that we associate with premature aging. So retinoids have the ability to flip the switch and make the fibroblast move up a gear, producing more collagen, but also limiting the breakdown of collagen that we already have by a negative impact, which prevents the extra production of something called matrix metalloproteinases. Now, those are enzymes that are upregulated when we're exposed to UV rays that chomp up our precious collagen. So our retinoids protect us from this happening. So the net effect of that is thicker, firmer, more elastic skin. Who doesn't want that? Let's move on to pigmentation and melanin distribution. Retinoids have an impact on that too. So sun-exposed skin tends to have irregular melanin distribution with the development of things like solar lentigos or age spots, which are these kind of fixed, round, flat, brown structures that appear on the skin, typically on sun-exposed sites and very common on the face, but also on the backs of the hands and the décolletage. And retinoids help improve the appearance by improving the distribution of melanin through the skin. What that looks like to us is brighter, more even-toned, youthful-looking skin. Next, let's move on to cell adhesion. Now that's just a fancy way of saying how the cells stick together. Now in acne, we have a problem with that. Abnormal cell adhesion leads to comedone formation. So that's where skin becomes congested, the pores become blocked, and that's the precursor lesion that leads to eventually creating breakouts and inflammatory lesions like papules, pustules, cysts, and so forth. So the reason retinoids are so fundamental to treating acne is because they prevent that primary lesion from happening in the first place. By preventing that abnormal stickiness in the pore, the pores become clear, which looks better anyway, but also reduces the risk of breakouts in the future. So that's why we're so reliant on retinoids for acne prevention. Then perhaps the final group is the way that retinoids work to increase the circulation in our skin. So they actually build blood vessels that bring fuel to the dermis. So that's essential things like amino acids that are building blocks of structures like collagen. So more fuel equals better supply of essential ingredients to keep our skin healthy, robust, and looking beautiful. So we can see that retinoids have an incredibly far-reaching effect on our skin, and then it's not surprising that they have a positive impact on so many different skin disorders, whether we're talking about melasma, whether we're talking about acne, whether it's inflammatory or comedonal, even rosacea. These are conditions that all have an ability to respond to retinoid receptor stimulation and not only help improve the problem, but help make the skin look better, which is something that we all want. Of course, there are lots of different types of retinoids and you have to choose the right one for your skin concern. If you have rosacea, you definitely want to control the acute phase of the disorder first before thinking about introducing a retinoid, and you want to go very gently. But there is a role to play in most of the common skin concerns as long as you understand what its purpose is and the right way to go about it. Final things to remember, retinoids are always used at night. They tend to not be stable during day due to their sensitivity to breakdown under the exposure of UV rays. They shouldn't be used when pregnant, and they should be used with caution with other active ingredients, in particular alpha hydroxy acids and benzoyl peroxide. So do your research when you're starting out with a retinoid and build a routine carefully and with consideration for how different ingredients work together. If you're looking for a place to start to build your retinoid routine, I direct you to my Retinoid Revelation series, which is such a great resource for helping you through all the challenges of the first 6 weeks. And it tends to be the first 6 weeks that are the most troublesome when it comes to things like dryness and irritation, but it's all very manageable. So do check out that series to ensure you choose the right retinoid for where you're at with your skin. Hope that was helpful, guys. If so, please leave me a comment down below and make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.